What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Miko, joined by my guy Morgan Cannon here. And today we are here to talk about the latest news to come out of the NFL today, which is the Pro Bowl roster announcements. Morgan and I are basically going to go through both rosters for both the AFC and the NFC, talk about obviously the Lions players that made it. In addition to that, obviously there's a big other talking point to come out of this announcement today, and that is the snub of free safety Kerby Joseph not making this year's Pro Bowl roster. So we're definitely going to talk about that as well. But Morgan, first and foremost, Pro Bowl day is I feel like one of the more divisive days in the NFL because it's exciting in one sense, but then there's always that every other caveat where we're going to have to talk about people who didn't make the roster.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, especially as you get to being fan or covering a team like the Lions, right? Because I think they have the second most Pro Bowlers.
Yep.
In the NFL behind the Ravens, I want to say.
Yeah, behind the Ravens.
So yeah, naturally, and we're going to get to it. If you're watching this video, you're probably aware of the person we're going to talk about getting snubbed, but still cool to see a lot of guys get recognized. And you know me, man, I'm all about the All-Pro. So I still think there's a really good chance Kerby Joseph could be named, Associated Press All-Pro,
yeah.
That's the big one if we're keeping it a buck. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, that, I could feel like, and we'll get to this more later in the video, but I think with Kerby, it could very well be very similar to the Amon-Ra situation last year, where Amon-Ra didn't initially make the Pro Bowl, but did make the All-Pro team, first team All-Pro. But like you said, yeah, Lions had 7 Pro Bowlers right behind the Ravens. Behind them, Minnesota had 6, Philadelphia had 6, Kansas City had 5, and Dallas had 5. Dallas having 5 is wild to me, considering the type of season they had, but let's start first and foremost. Let's just run down through the roster, starting with the NFC. Your quarterbacks are first and foremost Jared Goff being designated as the starter for the Pro Bowl team. Then you have rookie Jaden Daniels, and then free agent to be Sam Darnold. I can't say that I'm overly surprised by those 3 selections. Obviously, JG definitely deserved it with the season that he's been having, with the season that the Lions have been having. Over 4,000 yards passing, over 30 touchdowns this season. Getting really close to being able to break Matthew Stafford's record, which was 41 touchdowns in the season. So yes, he would need a huge game in week 18 to even just a tie, but really big year for JG.
Yeah, man, he's been so good. If you'd have told me, this is one of the more miraculous things of my sports fandom life. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't that long ago when it was middle of 2021, even the beginning of 2022, we're what are we going to do here, man? We got to figure something out. This ain't going to do it. And to get where we are now, it's just such a testament. That guy's got he's a Cali kid, but he's tough, man. That's one of my favorite things about Goff. He's been so accurate lately, knock on wood.
Mm-hmm.
But his ball placement has been crazy. Everything's been on the money. I was, thinking the other night about that, even the check down he had to Craig Reynolds where Craig busted off 26 yards.
Yeah.
Just the placement of that where Craig didn't even have to break stride and he just caught it and he was able to squeak by that linebacker in the flat and just, it's little things like that. The conversions he throws to Laporta when it's in a tight window or to JMO or St. Brown. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about Goff, and I'm happy that he's getting this flowers because he deserves it.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that he's more in a groove at this point, right? It's not just talent that you're seeing on display. You're actually seeing comfortability with not just the offense, but just being comfortable in the situation in the game. Again, against the 49ers where they're trailing for a good portion of that game in the first half, but then it's just obviously staying calm, cool, and collect, taking a couple sacks when he needed to, but then at the same time being able to bounce back, make big throws. It's really weird to say, but it's even for a veteran player that had already been in the league for a while, you've seen him grow so much, even in these last few seasons under Dan Campbell and with Ben Johnson.
Yeah, and he's so comfortable, to your point, Miko, in the offense because there's so many times, man, I'll be watching the game in person. I love doing that because you can really see where the personnel are and everything. And he cans a play, so he's killing the play at the line of scrimmage because I do think Ben Johnson a lot of the times gives him, multiple options. Okay, check to a run, check to a pass, excuse me. And when he checks to, when he cans a play, on first or second down, I'm oh, this might be a big run for Jameer or for Monty because I swear he's most of the time he checks them into something favorable depending on who's near the line of scrimmage or a bunch of different variables. And I feel like a lot of the time it results in like nice little chunks of yardage for the ground game.
No, absolutely. And so, like we said, JG's currently, pinned as the starter for the Pro Bowl. Like I said, with him behind him, you have Jaden Daniels, who's again had a fantastic rookie season. More than likely, your offensive rookie of the year. I know it'll probably be really tight between him and Bo Nix, which I don't know if Bo Nix made it on the AFC because obviously the AFC is stacked with quarterbacks. But again, good sign for Jaden Daniels. Had a really big year. Sam Darnold had a really big year. The three quarterbacks don't surprise me at all. I think the only other quarterbacks that maybe could have been in contention for a Pro Bowl spot in the NFC side, Baker Mayfield, again, despite everything that was going on down there, I think still had a really good season. And then obviously, I'm sure that there's Eagles fans wondering about Jalen Hurts. I don't think Jalen Hurts had as good of a season, though. I don't think his season definitely pales in comparison to both Jaden Daniels and Sam Darnold.
Yeah, man. Darnold's played so well lately. Like, I've given him his roses here talking, leading up to the Vikings game. He's playing really well. Like I watched that whole game in totality against the Packers and moving well in the pocket, like resetting his feet, fitting throws like near the boundary, like in tight windows. So yeah, praise, good for Darnold. Obviously the team loves him, loves being around him. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with McCarthy and everything this year offseason, though, because that's an interesting question. And I love Kevin O'Connell. I think he's an awesome just play caller. The game's going to be really good Sunday. But yeah, in my opinion, you really couldn't do anything with those three. Jaden Daniels is a baller, bro. Like,
yeah, I think he's going to be very, very good. I think Washington definitely got them a good one. Yeah, definitely got them a good one.
It's because they got rid of their crappy owner, Good karma came back around, bro.
Exactly. Moving on to the running backs. Again, three names that I think are somewhat expected. I think maybe the third one is maybe debatable, but you got Saquon Barkley with the Philadelphia Eagles, Jahmyr Gibbs for the Lions, and then Josh Jacobs for the Green Bay Packers coming in as your three running backs for the NFC Pro Bowl. Again, Saquon, obviously MVP candidate, so it's not a surprise that he got into the Pro Bowl. Jahmyr, again, great season. I think even before Monty's injury was still kind of probably on that track to where like, hey, he's one of the best running backs in the NFL. And I think you and I talked about that even leading up to the season, that like Jahmyr could really cement his name amongst some of the elite running backs, and him getting into the Pro Bowl this year, I think is a really good sign of that.
Yeah, Jaws arrived, man, like 1,700 yards from scrimmage. Only player with 70 yards from scrimmage in every single game. Like, he's just like Thanos out there, running back, bro, inevitable. But yeah, Saquon's had a huge year. They have a really good thing going with that Philly ground game. Obviously, the offensive line's awesome. Like Lane Johnson. I did see Brandon Thorne, who one of my favorite offensive line gurus, he said Lane Johnson needs to be first team All-Pro this year. And I'm like, hold on now, playa, because that's Panay. Like, you can't move Panay off that thing because he got it last year. Like, I don't know about that. Lane will get second. But yeah, I think you can't go wrong. And then Jacobs has had a great year in Green Bay. Like, he's a dog too. I can't even lie to you.
Yeah, the only person that I was kind of expecting at the third running back spot was probably Bijan, because I thought Bijan had a really good season. But no, Josh Jacobs has been like a life send for the Green Bay Packers, especially after they moved off of Aaron Jones this past offseason.
Who's also playing well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, the NFC had a number of good running backs. So, like, again, it's another nod to Ja that he was able to make it, like, especially with him splitting carries for most of the season with David Montgomery, who, again, probably would have had a good chance to make the Pro Bowl as well if he hadn't, gotten injured when he did. At the fullback spot, you have Kyle Juszczyk. No surprise there, right? If there's a fullback spot in the NFC, it's going to go to Kyle Juszczyk at this point. Think the same thing could kind of be said for wide receivers. Again, there's not a ton of surprises here. You have Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, who probably won't participate because I know he was put on IR already. So that will probably go to an alternate. But then you also have Terry McLaurin, which really happy for Terry McLaurin. Like, I don't think he gets enough praise as being one of those like high performing, consistent receivers. So really good to see that, again, outside of just Jaden Daniels getting that recognition, Terry McLaurin as well. But obviously, like, it all comes down to just Amon-Ra actually getting voted to the Pro Bowl this time, not having to just show up as an alternate.
I'm sure he's going to be happy about that because, he's just petty, and I get it. I'm petty too. But yeah, I'm good for Terry McLaurin, man, because he was kind of in quarterback purgatory forever. So he finally got a legit guy back there in Jaden, and now you're kind of seeing what can be unlocked. I think that's going to be, if they get like another, like a receiver 1B to go along with Scary Terry,
Yeah.
Because that's what they're gonna. That's my opinion. That's what they're gonna do first in this draft here coming up, and that's gonna be tough in the NFC East, Eagles fans. So that'll
Well,
be
I was gonna
something to
say at this
watch.
point in time, like yeah, like you're looking at the Eagles and you're just like, hey, we need more weapons, right? We need to be
Yeah.
able to like hold serve offensively, and so no, couldn't agree with you more. And it seems like this draft class might have a good amount of receivers. Not that I've been looking at the draft class because again, Lions won't have to worry about it for a few more weeks, for a few more months at that.
We keep
So
it honest here, guys. We don't start looking at the draft until the Lions stop playing. I'm not one of those
exactly.
people. We do too much stuff during the season to look at that too.
Especially when they're winning, right? Like when they're winning, there's
Yeah,
really no reason to look at the draft class.
agreed.
Tight ends. So we have once again George Kittle and Trey McBride. Trey McBride had a season this year,
Yeah.
like really kind of popped up onto the scene. I think if Sam had gotten going a little earlier, we could have seen him in that spot, or at least it would have made that battle between the two of them, between the three of them, way more interesting. But I mean, I think Sam is like first alternate for the NFC at the tight end position. So again, he's been coming on pretty well the last couple weeks now. But again, tight ends, not a huge surprise here.
No, and I'm happy that Sam's catching on at the right time, in my opinion. Like, I'd rather it be now, like when we need all hands on decks. But yeah, McBride balled. You could tell him and Kyler have a good rapport. They have some good skill guys out there. Obviously with Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he's going to be good. People are tripping. Like,
yeah. People see wide receivers get taken that high, and they think everyone has to be Jamar Chase. And
man,
unfortunately, like it's just like that's not how it's always schemed up. That's not always how players are used. But he's good. He'll be fine. Like he has all the tools. He'll be perfectly fine.
I thought he made plenty of plays this year, but they were just inconsistent. Just one of those teams. So, but yeah, I don't no qualms there. Same with offensive tackle jumping forward. I know you were gonna, yeah.
No, I was gonna say offensive tackle is exactly where you expect. The thing that's interesting is NFL.com has Lane Johnson and Penei Sewell listed as the starters. So who do you think's playing left? Penei?
Yeah,
which is like
Lane Johnson's too old.
Which is dope. Like I was gonna say, I think that's dope that they're even just like, no, we can't not start Penei. Because Tristan Wirfs plays left tackle, so you would think that in a situation where they're like, oh, we're gonna go with who's the left tackle, Wirfs would get the start. But no, currently NFL.com has Penei, Lane Johnson, Tristan Wirfs. Again, all three of the best tackles in football. Like not just in the NFC, I would say like in football. Period.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Like that's probably the three. I mean, obviously when Trent's healthy, he's in there.
Yes.
But this year, he wasn't really up. So, yeah, no qualms with that. He better, man. I will throw a fit if Penei's not first team All Pro.
I will too.
I will.
In all honesty, and I get it. Lane Johnson is very good. I completely understand.
Sorry, second.
Penei's has been that guy all season.
Yep.
Offensive guard, again, I don't think there's really any qualms about this. Landon Dickerson, Tyler Smith, Chris Lindstrom. Obviously, Kevin Zeitler is a name that I think a lot of people will look at as like, hey, he was probably pretty deserving, which again, he's another alternate. The Lions, as well as they got, 7 players onto the Pro Bowl, they have a lot more alternates that are, kind of waiting in the wings in the case that their other players aren't able to go and that the Lions don't make it to the Super Bowl. But can't really complain about the guards either.
No, if you're a fan of offensive line or, you're a pretty like in-depth fan, then, those are names that you recognize in Dickerson, Smith, and Lindstrom. Same thing at center. Finally, yep. It's cool to see. It's cool to see like the changing of the guard. Like, you're used to seeing Kelsey there for so long. And now, Cam Jurgens is a dog too, though. So good for Philadelphia stepping in from one to another, right?
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, like, good on Frank once again, getting another Pro Bowl vote. So playing really well, hasn't had to deal with nearly as many injuries as he has in past seasons. So again, knock on wood in that situation. Hopefully that continues as they kind of, head into the playoffs. Jumping over to the defensive side, the Lions only had one defensive player get named to the Pro Bowl, but outside of that, your defensive ends, you had Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Gary, all very deserving. Your interior defensive linemen, Jalen Carter, Dexter Lawrence, Vita Vea, again, no surprises there. Would have loved to have seen where Aleem would have fell if he had been healthy because he was having a really good season. And I think it's not even debatable. Aiden would have made this list based off the season he was having, like by the time that he had gotten hurt. So again, no shockers with your D-line players.
No. Dexter Lawrence is a dog. Vita Vea has been consistently one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league for a couple of years now, several years now. And Jalen Carter is a problem. No issues there.
I'm always surprised to see where Micah Parsons is going to show up because he bounces back and forth between outside linebacker and defensive end.
Right.
I don't know how they decide that, but again, he makes it at defensive end. Your outside linebackers, though, are Jonathan Greenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jared Verse. Good on Jared Verse, because I thought he had a chance to have a really good season. He's done that so far for the Rams. Minnesota getting both of their outside linebackers. I mean, Van Ginkel has been crazy, right? There's people talking about like how he could be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, because there's just not that many like guys that have that many buckets right now. You know what I mean? Like I don't know who the sack leader. It might be him. I think he has like 14.
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah,
Maybe. I think
that's what.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I'll have to look. No, I'll have to
But
look.
yeah, that's why Kerby Joseph. That's why people think Kerby has a case for a defensive player of the year, because there's not one of those pass rushers with like 18 or 19 or 20 sacks. Yeah, and Jared Verse, yeah, he's been a problem for a lot of people this year. So looks like Los Angeles hit on at least that one. I'm not so sold on the Fisk. He's been, he has some issues, and when I watch them against the run, but yeah, Verse is nice.
I still like him for what he'll bring to them as a 3-tech. Like I think he'll be very good for them just as a pass rushing 3.
Yeah, he's got to get a little stronger at the point of attack because he's getting his butt whooped.
Yeah. As far as sack leaders go, actually Trey Hendrickson and Myles Garrett both have 14.
Okay.
Which is so yeah. I think this is, I mean, we'll get to it when we talk to Kerby, but I think this is a good year where a defensive player could go to someone that doesn't play on the defensive line.
Yeah. It's usually a D-line role, to your point, for sure. Or Ward, excuse me.
You get to the middle linebackers, you have Fred Warner and Zach Bond. Again, no qualms, no surprises from there. I do believe Jack was voted as an alternate, so again, good recognition for him to at least get that type of support from the fan vote as well as coaches and players. Your corners, Jalen Johnson, Byron Murphy, J.C. Horn, Devin Witherspoon. Again, no big surprises.
No. Cool to see J.C. Horn get his, because I think he was hurt for a year or two in the past here, and I really liked his game, coming out of college and everything. So good to see him get some recognition. Jalen Johnson, probably the best cover man in football right now. And Witherspoon, me and if you're familiar with this channel, me and Miko, the year we traded back and took Jameer, we were all in the Devin Witherspoon bucket, man. He played, for those of you who don't know, he was Kirby's roommate at Illinois and Champaign. Like, yeah, that would have been nice. And I think that was 100%. We can't confirm with 100% accuracy that was their plan, but I do think once he got drafted, when the Seahawks did that, that's when Brad was like, dang it,
Yeah, it definitely feels like that was the one player that Brad Holmes really wanted and was like, that one got away.
Dang it, yeah. Tricky Pete, man. That a-hole.
I'm going to skip the next position, but obviously at strong safety, you have Buda Baker, Brian Branch, long snapper, Andrew DePola, punter, Jack Fox. Your place kicker is Brandon Aubrey. Your return specialist is Kavonte Turpin. Your special teamer is Kadero Hodge. The position I skipped over was... Yeah, shout out Kadero Hodge for that. Shout out Brian Branch for getting in at strong safety. BB has been insane this season, right? Obviously, he had to deal with, obviously getting kicked out of the Green Bay game. But for the most part, like, to move from nickel to safety and still be playing at a high level, like that's something that just shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah. I mean, I expected nothing less from him, to be honest with you. And I laugh sometimes because I think about him doing the double birds and then that interview and he was like, I'm sorry y'all had to see that. That won't happen again.
It's such, like, he is the definition of player who flips a switch when he plays. Like when he plays, no F's are given. But you can tell, like, when he gets like in the locker room and then he has to like, oh yeah, I did this, this, and this, and it's like, that's not how I want you guys to think of me.
Because like if you listen to the beat writers that are there in person with them, like Eric and Jeremy and like Justin Rogers, everybody, Burkett, like he's like very much like yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am. So I don't know, that makes me laugh every time I think about it. And it forever will make me laugh when I think of Brian Branch. Like he's definitely one of my favorite Lions right now. But yeah, happy to see BB get it. And to your point, Miko, we got to give him, I think we took it in stride because we knew what kind of player he was. But at the same time, like, we got to give him credit for being able to just like, oh yeah, I was almost an all-pro nickel last year in my rookie year. Now I'm an all-pro safety or a Pro Bowl safety, excuse me. But crazy. Might be an all-pro.
Huge swing, huge performance from Brian Branch this season. But the player that we skipped over, the position we skipped over was free safety. Only one free safety for the NFC, Xavier McKinney from the Green Bay Packers. And that had a lot of eyebrows raised, right? Because everybody, I'm assuming, if not expecting two, maybe free safeties, at least expecting if there was only going to be one, that it would be Kerby Joseph.
Yeah, man, and he's the interception leader in the NFL. So he's got 9 picks. He's consistently my cats are tripping over here. He's consistently one of the better players like on the field, like comes up with timely interceptions. Like I feel like he's got a couple this year in the end zone, like taking points off the board. He had the pick 6 in the first Green Bay game. Like I just leaving him off. And for those that don't know, so fan voting is 1/3 of the formula. Okay, and then it's coaches and players, isn't it, Miko?
Yeah, for the other 2/3, yeah.
So, and we're going to get into it, but obviously there's some opinions that have been formed about Kerby within his peers and like some of these coaches, we're going to get into it. But yeah, like going back to the playoff game when Stafford ran up to him and was like, "You're dirty. It's on tape. You're dirty as you know what."
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the case. And there's just so many instances where it happens, like on a day-to-day, on a game-to-game basis, right, Miko? Like,
yeah, I think when it comes to Kerby, and I think that's where, if you're wondering why, right? Why does Kerby Joseph not make the Pro Bowl, despite, like you said, being one of the highest graded safeties according to PFF, to having the most interceptions in the league, to leading the fan vote for that specific position? How does that not translate to both the coaches and the players? I do think it's a thought that's at least circulating in enough teams and enough rosters and enough locker rooms that maybe Kerby doesn't play the game the cleanest way or the way that other players would appreciate. And that is something that I know for myself, Morgan. I can't pretend like I don't understand where that comes from, right? Like you and I were talking about this before. If I'm being objective, I understand how that thought process gets formed. I don't know how people continue to run with it, looking at how Kerby plays outside of the 2 games where he's involved in plays that players got injured in, right? Like I understand how you can see those 2 events and see the same player involved with the same type of tackle to the same types of players with the same result and being like, okay, something's fishy here. But Kerby's been in the league for now, 3 seasons now, for 3 years now. And that's only been a pattern in one of those 3 seasons. Other than that, Kerby's been fine. He hasn't been fined a ton for, illegal hits or for hitting a defenseless receiver or anything like that. So I don't necessarily understand how people continue to run with it. And my biggest issue with this narrative is the term dirty. Like if you want to find a word to use for Kerby when it comes down to how he plays the position, I just don't think dirty is the play. If you want to say inconsistent, if you want to say even a little irresponsible, I would be fine with. But dirty just does not seem like the proper adjective to describe Kerby Joseph at this point.
No, and I thought you made an excellent point because we were trying to get our thoughts together about this and like try to put something cohesive for, our viewers to like listen to. And if you look at it, like Miko put it perfectly. Like these plays happen all the time. Like Kerby, for those of you that don't know, he had the 2 hits. Like they were very similar, where he hit TJ Hawkinson and Tyler Higbee. And both were knee injuries. And it's unfortunate. But we talked about it. I've said it a bunch on this channel. Kerby Joseph's a big guy. Like people don't really realize he's like 6'1" ish, probably a little bigger. He's thicker. He's like probably like 215 if I had to guess. Just a big kid. And he's not a malicious personality at all. Like everyone loves him. He's hilarious. He is from like Central Florida. Both his parents are from Haiti. Like I'm not trying to, but if there's other fans watching this and they're like trying to get a perspective, he's just not a dirty player, man. Like Miko said it. He's a converted receiver, played receiver, was drafted. I think he was recruited as an athlete to Illinois. And eventually they moved him to safety because it just was going to be easier for him to make like an impact at the pro level, probably. And he's a ball hawk. He early on had some issues with tackling.
Yeah.
Just because the technique wasn't there, the angles weren't there, like the moment of truth where you need to break down and like run through somebody's hip, it just wasn't there. Or like even like a lot, the way DBs tackle where they're just trying to get you on the ground. So they're chopping at ankles. It's just the nature of the game. Like you look back, the Derek Barnes injury, like he got cut. Like some of these screen passes, you guys watch, if you're watching the game live, you'll notice like when a lot of teams throw those bubble screens to like the boundary, they're having to, like, the tackles will have to chop the defensive ends. Well, cut them, excuse me. I don't want to say chop, but they cut them because they need to get them on the ground because they don't want them to get their hands up in the throwing lanes. So it's a play that happens, and it's become a thing like that. They get injured too, and defenders don't really like getting chopped or cut, excuse me, but it's just the nature of the game. Like they've made it illegal now where pullers, right? Like in the running game, like your tackle or your guard, they're in space out in front of the ball carrier. Back in the day, DBs, safeties, like you could go cut those guys and get them on the ground, right? Like you don't want to hit Penei Sewell heads up. He's 340 pounds and he's rolling. That's not going to be fun. But now that's illegal because it result in injuries. So what I'm saying is it happens all the time. Like you had the Derek Barnes one. We talked about it before the Minkah Fitzpatrick hit on Nick Chubb that obliterated his knee. That wasn't, yes, Minkah got low. Like if you go run that video back, it's just it's unfortunate. Minkah Fitzpatrick's not a dirty player. That man's a ball hawk. He's one of the best safeties in football for a long time now. So yeah, it's just not a thing, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like I said, it's the label of dirty for me, right? Like I think when I get that the game has changed, but I think we also still have like prime examples of like, hey, that's a dirty player, right? Like I still think back to Vontaze Burfict. I still think back to James Harrison. I remember when Ryan Clark was giving out CTE to slot receivers who dared cross the middle. And again, that's how they were allowed to play the game back then, but that's what got you labels as dirty. I'll even bring it home for people, Morgan. I remember when Ndamukong Suh played here. And as much as we all loved Suh and still love Suh, and we would defend him like because he was our guy, there's no way that we could defend everything. Like there were a number of things that Ndamukong Suh did on the football field that when you saw them, you were like, that's not football, right? Regardless of what he would try to say his intent was, you with your own two eyes could be like, that's not how you play the game though. And I think that's my biggest issue with Kerby is that like you can say that, like I said, that's why I think like if you want to say that he's not consistent, if you want to say that he's irresponsible or that he's not technically sound, I think you can say those things to describe Kerby with his tackling at times. But I don't think you can say that he's dirty. He's not playing the game in a way that it's not meant to be played. They have taken out the ability to hit receivers high. They have said that you cannot do that. They have also said that you can't hip drop tackle anybody anymore. So what else do you expect a player to do? And again, that's what leaves them with that whole idea of, okay, well, I have to try to hit you, again, trying to hit you in the thigh, right? And this is where I say, and I said this when Kerby had the hit on Tyler Higbee, because we had this conversation then, because that's when we first started seeing the chatter about him being a dirty player. Had the conversation then. My only issue with Kerby is, and this is where I will agree that he's not just technically sound, he needs to look where he's hitting, because I think that would make it easier for him to hit people on the thigh, or that it would make it easier for him to wrap people around the waist. But I also understand that the game is happening at 1,000,000 miles an hour in a split second, right? And so there's only so much you can do where it's like, okay, do I try to make a tackle here, or do I like, there's only so many thought processes that can go through your brain at that time. And that's why I say, if you want to say that Kerby needs to be more responsible, he's in year 3, he should be making better plays like this, I would agree with you. And I would also point out to you that in year 3, he has. Name to me the player that Kerby Joseph has tackled this season that you're like, oh yeah, he also blew that person's ACL out. Like,
yep. Way better tackler this year.
He's been a much better tackler this year. And so it's unfair in that context, in my opinion, Morgan, for him to be stuck with the label when it's very visible on tape what he's doing wrong. Like it's not an intentional, like, hey, you can see him eyeing this person's knee. Like, honestly, you go back and rewind those Kerby Joseph hits. Morgan and I talked about them. He's looking at the freaking ground. And that's a problem. That's a problem from a technique standpoint, not just for him, or not just for the opposing player, but for him as well. Him. JJ Watt even pointed out the exact same thing, where he's like, honestly, he needs to have his head up. But outside of that, there's not much else you can really expect from him when he's trying to make these tackles against players that are 4, 5, 6 inches taller than him and outweigh him by 20, 30 pounds.
Yeah, that's JJ Watt actually had me laughing for that. He was like, besides keeping his head up, because he said for sure he's got to do that for his own safety, because that's how you get a spinal injury, was by getting that top of that dome rung. but he said, how else would you propose he tackle a tight end running full speed at him? The shoulder, and he paused it right there, is directly thigh board. Like Kerby's shoulder pad is in Tucker Kraft's thigh pad, which that's perfect. And other than that, heads up, but this is a good tackle. And you had it was that guy, it's that 247 sports guy. I'm not even going to say his name. I clowned him today if y'all are on Twitter. But he's like, used the word scumbag. Like, come on, dog. Like, your point, like, Ndamukong Suh, man, we love Suh here. He was a great player, but he was dirty. He towed the line. He went across it a lot. I wouldn't even, like, Kerby's not a headhunter by any means. The man is a ball hawk. That's why he has so many interceptions. I think y'all are confused. Like, BB is the one who wants to come up and wreck your day.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm saying. It's funny. I don't know.
You have players like Brian Branch. You have guys like Malik Mustafa. Like, and again, not that these are dirty players, but those are guys that are going out there to impose their will, that are going out there to lay, like, to put a big hit on you. Kerby's not that guy. And so it's unfortunate that a narrative like this is being said about him. And it's something that you can tell that the Lions staff knows. It's something that I'm sure the players are very cognizant of. Like, this is why he's probably not getting voted in. And again, we are speculating, obviously, but it's the only thing that kind of makes sense when you look at a player that is clearly going out there performing and playing at the highest level. How does he not get the support of his peers and other coaches? And it's stuff like, again, what we said, like you said, Morgan, Matthew Stafford pointing it out, in a game, and as well as other players probably saying it on Twitter and things like that. So it's like, it's clearly a narrative, and it's an unfortunate narrative. But all Kerby can do at this point is continue to play at a high level and show that to not be the case, because this is a guy that's never been suspended, that's never been heavily fined for dirty hits or things like that. So it's just, I think he might have had like one fine for like hitting like a defenseless hit, and that was against like Arizona, and I can't even remember the exact play.
It was a helmet to helmet though. That's exactly that, and that drives our point home even more, because if you go high, you're going to get a FedEx, and it's going to cost you 1/4 or sometimes 1/2 if you rack up a couple of them with your game check, right? And
yep,
that's a chunk of change, man. So yeah, I am not hitting. I like money. I'm not hitting high either if I'm in Kerby Joseph's. Like, he's not a dirty player. I don't know how else. Like, y'all can come at us in the comments. We really don't care. It's just, he's not, man. Like, there was instances you saw guys like that you mentioned, Miko, the Vontaze Burficts, the Ndamukong Suhs. RC, man, love Ryan Clark. I don't think he was a dirty player, but the way he played the game, to your point, Miko, is the reason the game has changed now, because he was like, guys were out there. If y'all are a little bit younger, go ahead, go fire some early 2000s big hits up.
I was going to say, go to YouTube, type NFL big hits, and I bet you most of them are going to come from a time when it was like mid-2000s, early to mid-2000s, and it's a lot of safeties blasting
killing
dudes
people
across the middle.
Killing people, dude. Like, straight up, like watching UFC, like they're postured like this, like knocked TFO. You know what I'm saying? We're not cussing on this channel, but out cold. So that's why the game changed. Like, and the NFL saw, to their credit, they're like, hey, passing's going up, 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 up. We got to do something about this, man.
Yeah.
And they did. So this is it just happens all the time. Like we brought up the Fitzpatrick point. If you're just try to see things through objective glasses, man. I don't even know who hurt Derek Barnes. I don't know who David Montgomery got hit in the knee. I don't know who hit David Montgomery the other week when he hurt his knee, when he banged it up. So it happens. People don't want to hit David Montgomery high. This gets me passionate because, come on, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, like there's an element of playing football at the highest level where you expect injuries. And like I said, I don't think he's dirty. I don't think that's the word that people should use. I think there are much better adjectives if you want to describe Kerby, if you have a criticism of how Kerby plays the game. Dirty just isn't the word. But that's pretty much going to do it for this video, guys. We pretty much went through the roster for the NFC. If you want to see the rest of the AFC roster, you can definitely check that online. That's entirely posted just about everywhere. But that's pretty much going to do it for this video. If you are looking for more additional Lions content, all you have to do is check out prideofdetroit.com. There's new articles being uploaded over there. You probably even get some more insight and some more information about the possible or why Kerby Joseph was not included on this year's Pro Bowl team, as well as keep an eye on the website once they start naming their All-Pro team, the first team and second team All-Pros, which should be about like next week, I'm assuming. I think I saw... Usually, middle of the week next week is probably when that stuff will start getting announced. So it'll be interesting to see how many Lions make the All-Pro team this year. But with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch. And we'll be sure to catch you guys in the next one.